Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Don Lemon. You're in the CNN newsroom, and we're going to start with a story that has really gripped the nation today. An NBA owner's reported remarks about race have ignited controversy around this country. Recorded comments are being attributed to Donald Sterling, the billionaire owner of the LA Clippers. His apparent girlfriend, a woman identified as V. Stiviano, supposedly made the recording later obtained by TMZ Sports. It features a man making racist remarks and telling Stiviano to stop posting images online showing her with black athletes. This photo, this is the one. This is what TMZ Sports says sparked the exchange. A photo showing Stiviano with LA basketball legend Magic Johnson. The voice purported to be Sterling criticizes Magic and says he doesn't want to see him at Clippers games. So we're going to play these recordings for you tonight. Every time I hear it, it's like the first time. A lot to work through here, so let's bring Brian Claypool, a criminal defense attorney who also happens to be a Clippers season ticket holder. Interesting. Good to see all of you. And Brian, you're a season ticket holder. You're an attorney. What's going to happen? Because there are many people who are saying, you know, boycott, do all these things. That would certainly hurt the players. What's going on out there as a season ticket holder, as a fan? What are you hearing?
Well, Don, I will tell you, first of all, I'm not buying into the fact that he's got dementia. There has been a pattern and practice out here in Los Angeles. A lot of folks know about it. Mr. Sterling has been sued previously for having not rented apartment buildings. He owns a lot of apartment buildings. He's been sued for not renting to blacks and Hispanics. He said openly he doesn't like blacks and Hispanics. So this is bigger than the LA Clippers. This is about human decency and human dignity, mutual respect for others. And I will tell you that as a season ticket holder, I'm stunned, shocked, and very disappointed. And I will tell you that in the last few weeks, Don, I've taken African American friends to the games. Now, can I look in my heart and say I'm going to go to another game knowing that this man despises blacks? And here's another thing to think about. If Donald Sterling is not removed as the Clippers owner, and I'm repping any of the Clipper players, next year you look for some of these Clipper players to try to get out of their contracts based on fraud, because they didn't know this when they signed up for it.
Yeah, and will they have a legal leg to stand on? They probably will, right?
They absolutely. Are you kidding me? I mean, Don, you go into an employer, and an employer says, hey, I'm a great guy, I have high morals, I uphold ethical standards in the business, and I love all races, and I'll treat you fairly, right? And then you find out years later, look at Chris Paul's reaction. That speaks volumes. He is shocked by this. Then they find out that this man doesn't want blacks at the games, and that possibly he's treating blacks different than other races. That means you signed up for something based on false and fraudulent information. I think they have a very good chance of getting out of their contracts. And then what are we left with? The city of Los Angeles won't even have a team left here unless he's removed as the owner.
Well, they've got the Lakers, right? So,
well, like I
your
said,
estimation,
we won't have a team. We won't have a team in Los Angeles.
As a Clippers fan, you think that?
You know, Brian, we know that the engineer here has been cooperating with the NTSB. They say he's been very cooperative. They also say, though, he cannot recall anything about the crash. If he is sued and his memory does not come back, would he be able to use a lack of recollection as a defense in court?
Well, yes, he would be able to use lack of recollection because he genuinely can't recall what happened leading up to the train derailing. And I think that would defeat any type of criminal prosecution as well. Remember, you've got a civil aspect of this and then a potential criminal prosecution for manslaughter. The fact that he can't remember what happened would be devastating to the prosecution trying to charge him with manslaughter. And then you've got the issue of the positive track control. I mean, I don't think they can prosecute this engineer because his argument would be in a criminal case, hey, but for the fact that positive traffic control was not implemented, this accident would have never happened. So you have a causation issue.
Just so our viewers know what you're talking about, that positive traffic control, that is something that's implemented on some parts of this rail line, not here, and it's something that automatically can slow down trains, and actually it is mandated to be implemented on all parts of the track by 2020. Right. It just hasn't happened yet. You've said, Brian, that one of the really critical things here that you think is not getting enough attention is who owns this portion of the track. Why is that so key?
Right. Well, nobody's looking at this issue, Poppy, and this goes to potential civil liability, because as it stands right now, there is a $200 million cap on a single train disaster. So here we've got eight folks who have tragically died. You've got countless, close to 170, 80 other folks who've been injured. $200 million, Poppy, is not going to come close to compensating these individuals. Now, if this track was owned by a private freight company, such as Union Pacific or a company named CSX, then the claimants in this case could sue, in addition to Amtrak, the private freight company. And guess what? There is an agreement in place between Amtrak and all these private freight companies where Amtrak would absorb all of the financial liability. So let's say somebody sued the private owner.
Which means in part the taxpayer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what that means, Poppy, is there really would not be a $200 million cap. If this curve where the derailment happened was owned by a private company, there is no $200 million cap. Amtrak would be on the hook for the entire amount.
If a person did throw something at this train, because one of my experts last hour was saying a rock flying up from the ground doesn't dent a windshield like this. It has a special glaze over it. This likely wouldn't be a rock. If someone threw something at this train, what does that do to the liability of Amtrak?
Well, I think that's a good question. And the other guest you talked to, the engineer, he made a good point about if you look at the glass that's cracked there, and I've dealt with cases dealing with bullets. If that's just a rock, I don't think you're going to get that deep of a fracture in the windshield. I think there was something else. I don't know if it was a gun, you would possibly retrieve the bullet. But I think the issue is that Amtrak would still be liable for this incident. There would be an argument made by Amtrak, oh, there's an intervening cause. They would argue, well, it wasn't the engineer's fault here. It was an intervening act that really caused the train to derail. But I think that would be a really, really weak argument, because you still have to explain how the speed increased so quickly. And then the best argument to defeat Amtrak using that as a defense is, look, you've known for 20 years about positive train control, which you talked about, where the brakes would have automatically come on once the speed goes too high. And that truly was the cause of this incident. In other words, had PTC been in place, this accident still does not happen. So I think Amtrak will be liable civilly with or without this rock or bullet.
Amtrak's own CEO said if PTC had been in place, then this wouldn't have happened. It's pretty astonishing, actually, that it hasn't been mandated already to be put in place. Brian, we're out of time. I'm sorry. Hold your thought.
Okay,
we'll talk more about it. Thanks for being on. As always, I appreciate it. This, as new questions continue to emerge from the investigation of the Germanwings airline crash. How much, if anything, did the airline know about the mental state of the man who officials say deliberately crashed this plane? Let's talk about it. Brian Claypool, a criminal defense attorney, joins me from Los Angeles. Thank you both for being here. Brian, let me begin with you. You spent part of your career defending French airliners and Airbus specifically. When you look at this, Lufthansa's CEO has said that obviously something tragic happened here. Lubitz slipped through the safety precautions that they have. The airline believed that he was indeed fit to fly. They say they had no knowledge of those medical notes that were found in his apartment torn up, saying that he was unfit to fly. Do you think that Lufthansa faces liability here?
Well, first of all, Poppy, the comment by the CEO that Lubitz was 100% fit to fly is irresponsible, and it's not based on any fact. When I did defense work for French Airbus, I will tell you that very little went into screening of pilots. And in fact, our own federal regulations in terms of pilot training and screening are very weak, Poppy. Our regulations deal primarily with the training of pilots. There's very little as far as whether a pilot is fit. And in this case, the issue is not, well, did Lufthansa know about it? And gee, did Lubitz hide this from us? The issue is, should they have known? And it's my position here is that clearly they should have done more. We need more transparency with pilots. They need to be subjected to mental health assessments, not a 5-minute discussion, how are you doing? And then once they're hired, Poppy, we need to have more regulations in place to make sure that the mental health of these pilots is continuously regulated. Yeah, Poppy, look, this is ridiculous. I'm pretty outraged by this. If you want to run an airline and you want to hire a pilot that is going to put 150 lives in his or her hands, then you as the airline better hire somebody to assess these pilots. And I'll tell you what the real story is here. Airlines worldwide don't really want to know what the truth is about their pilots, because if they do find out, that will put them on notice that they're possibly unfit. Let me finish. And if they do find out, then they could be facing more liability.
I understand your point. Don't know if it's fair to say airlines don't want to know. More now on the crash of Germanwings Flight 9525, and a key question: should doctors have had to report the co-pilot Andreas Lubitz's mental health state to the airline?
Poppy, the key in the law that you just read is the word may. You said the doctors may report it. We need a change in the HIPAA laws, and worldwide we need changes that say the doctors must report, the key word must, and make them a mandated reporter, that if they suspect, especially with a pilot, if they suspect a pilot has a medical condition that impairs his or her ability to fly a plane, or a mental health disorder that compromises his or her ability to fly a plane, then they must report that to the employer and, if need be, law enforcement. And if they don't, there are consequences, which means criminal prosecution for failing to report. The only way to stop this from happening again is if everybody has skin in the game, that medical health personnel have skin in the game, therapists have skin in the game, and that there are consequences. Public safety trumps privacy.